What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here, and if you didn't notice, Death Battle put out another Goku versus Superman video. This is their third one, and so I thought, since I've talked about this before, that I would go ahead and look at the results and give my thoughts on it. And a big surprise, not really, Superman wins yet again, third consecutive win against Goku. So I kind of want to talk through the points they made, what I agree with, what I disagree with, stuff like that. And I want to start with just overall what they talk about. So they said Superman wins. To their credit, they said that Goku beats most versions of Superman, but this main, quote-unquote, main continuity Superman would win. And then at the end, they kind of broke down how they would give the different advantages, right? So like Superman had the advantage in strength, experience, and power. Goku has the advantage in skill. Then they tie in speed, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I want to talk about some main issues that I had. I want to start with Superman. So from the offset, right, they're talking about which version of Superman is this. And, you know, they say, well, it's all of them, because in the current continuity of Superman, all of the Supermans are wrapped into one, and they're actually all the same character. So like the pre-crisis Superman, the Silver Age Superman, is the same one that we have today. And that obviously makes no sense. That's a weird writer's cop-out. That, again, it obviously is like contradictory and makes no sense. They're trying to turn Superman into a different character than what he is. They want to make Superman like some godly, dimensional, you know, ethereal being, kind of the same thing they did with Darkseid, where they retconned that, where like, oh, the Darkseid that we've seen forever, that's actually a Darkseid avatar. The real Darkseid is this other guy. They're doing the same thing with Superman, where they're trying to make him kind of more than he is, and I think this is part of it, trying to wrap all continuities into one. And the reason that doesn't make much sense is because like the Silver Age Superman and the pre-crisis Superman are way more powerful. They have way more abilities. It's totally disconnected and different from what we have today, but for whatever reason, they're wrapping it all into one. Another issue I think they have with Superman, and I talked about this in my video, is that they just wrap together all of his high-end feats, right, that have been over the almost 90 years of Superman continuity, all these different writers and everything. Because the way it works is you'll get a writer who has a very particular view of Superman, so they write him the way that they want to. Maybe they want to expand a certain part of his backstory, so they give him a new ability or a new feat, and the next writer says, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to tell my story, and they just drop it, never to be seen again, and then they do their thing, and they give him his feat, and then we drop that, never to be heard from again. And we do that for decades, and now Superman has, like, every single feat under the sun. So we just have a slew of, like, weird, like, multiversal one-off feats that the actual issue-to-issue Superman is obviously so far away from that power level, but it doesn't matter. And the same thing with, like, they mentioned the Kryptonian martial arts. To their credit, they pretty much downplayed it into being meaningless. But it's like, oh, Kryptonian martial arts. Superman knows martial arts. It's like, okay, one writer, one time, decades ago, made a book where Superman has martial arts, and it was never used or heard from ever again. So it's like, no, he does not know martial arts. And there's a lot of that with Superman. And as I said in a previous video of mine, that all these weird one-off high-end feats should probably be thrown out, just like you would want to throw out all the weird low-end feats. Because what these have in common is that they're inconsistent to the core character. They're only there to serve a plot point. The low-end feats where Superman gets beat by, like, Jonah Hex, that's to serve some plot point. Superman feats where his heat vision, like, sears space-time. That's obviously just serving a plot point that's not consistent with the actual character and pretty much makes no sense. They also kind of cap off Superman with his World Forger feat, which is pretty recent, where he is super amped by all these different stars, and he punches the World Forger and like shatters a multiverse, all that type of thing in one punch. And they kind of hang that feat as sort of a deciding factor that's so far above what Goku can do. It's this huge, powerful feat, probably one of Superman's best feats ever. But even if you were to say, like, okay, I can believe that that happened, when again, it's so far removed with the actual issue-to-issue character. In that case, Superman, again, was super amped. He flew through, like, a million different suns to get super, super amped and powerful, and then delivered this punch. It's obviously not Superman, right? That's not how he normally behaves. It's not how his normal power level is. And then some issues that I have with Goku They're obviously drawing from the current manga, pretty up to date, so I guess a little bit of credit for that. Whenever I was doing my videos, I was mostly just talking about the anime, though the manga obviously does come into play with certain techniques and stuff that we haven't seen yet, like the energy avatar created by Ultra Instinct or different Hakai stuff that we haven't really seen yet. So they are using the most current version, but whenever they're talking about Goku, they're mostly just talking about different techniques that he does, and then they don't really talk about, I think, destructive power, which I think is a reasonable thing to talk about. They talk about how in his god form he and Beerus like almost shattered the universe, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. And they mentioned the Dragon Ball Superheroes version and his different feats and stuff, which I think was stupid because, like, that's not canon, right? That's all just kind of nonsense as well, and should just be thrown out and ignored, right? When really, I think you should be trying to scale power in a bit more, I don't know, what's the word? Understandable terms of, like, planetary destructive ability. Because remember, base form Frieza could easily destroy a planet. Beerus can tap his finger and split a planet in half. And we know that Goku at this point is way beyond that lazy, untrained Beerus. And obviously, planetary destruction is like such a low effort move from a person like Goku right now. Versus like Superman, he is not consistently a planet busting character as shown by the character. No doubt that he can destroy a planet, but we've actually never really seen him do it, especially not consistently. But then out of nowhere, he'll just be like, oh, here's a universe-ending punch or something like that. So I think that the actual power output scale is way more in Goku's favor and can be tracked a lot more easily than it can with Superman. But this kind of ties into more general issues that I had with it as a whole, which is the first thing that I hate, which they didn't do it very much to their credit, but when they try and use like real-world math to justify certain things, like when they gave Superman the strength advantage, they were like, well, the DC universe is 10 non-decillion times larger than our universe, and Goku's universe is only 1,500 times larger than our universe. So if we do the math, then his punch must have been this much more powerful. It's like, throughout the video, they keep saying, Goku's a character that breaks laws of physics, or Superman's a character that breaks laws of physics. It's like, you acknowledge the fact that physics are not a play here. We're shattering realities and dimensions and going faster than light. What's even the point of trying to do like the calculations? It means nothing. It's meaningless. It doesn't tell you anything. It's just annoying. And then also, they conflate combat speed and travel speed, which this is something I've talked about before that I really don't like, is obviously your reaction in combat speed is different than your travel speed. The fastest runners on Earth are not like master martial artists because of how fast they move, nor are master martial artists like master sprinters. There's obviously a difference between being very fast in a fight, your reaction speed, your combat speed, and then your travel speed being different. And if people say something like, well, Superman can move so fast he perceives everything in slow motion, it's like, yeah, I guess, but that doesn't even mean necessarily that you would win. And that doesn't even mean that Goku would be like that, because again, Goku was able to react and hit people fast enough that were like traveling through static time, like hit. So I don't even know that that would be true, that Superman would have that advantage. But they do conflate the two, which I've talked about before. I think is an issue because Goku obviously has an advantage there. But the biggest problem is a Superman problem, and it's why I don't think Superman wins this, is because in order to make Superman win this fight, you have to have Superman behave in a theoretical way in which he has never behaved before. You have to piece together all these different feats and abilities throughout the decades into one character, when again, that's never been used, never been shown, ever. You tie in like, well, over here he has martial arts abilities, over here he can phase through attacks, over here he's got this ability, over here he's got that ability. Let's tie that all together into one composite character and have that character fight. When it's like, that's not how Superman fights. That's never how he behaves before. This character that we're putting up against Goku doesn't exist. It's never existed before, which is why we have to Frankenstein together these feats to try and make a case for it. If you want to say that, like, in theory, a list of Superman's feats and power sets beats Goku's list of feats and power sets, it's like, yeah, probably. Because we're taking 90 years of continuity and laying it all out and saying, well, altogether, this probably beats Goku. It's like, yeah, probably. But that's not what the fight is, or at least that's not what it should be. It should be the character Superman versus the character Goku. And obviously, if that's the case, the character Goku wins. Because again, Superman would have to act so out of character and this mishmash of different abilities and feats to win. Goku would just have to behave like he always behaves in every episode or every chapter of the manga. There's no difference there because his character is way more consistent, which I think is a disadvantage maybe for Goku, that we can't like throw out, you know, a 60-year-old feat that's never shown up before or since and then use that as like a win condition. But it kind of ties into how Superman got here, because like I said, they're trying to turn him into this super powerful character more so than he is. And Goku's become a way more powerful character as well. But Goku achieves power through training and techniques over time. He grows more and more powerful, and this is something that he naturally and organically achieves. Superman, on the other hand, doesn't do any of that. He's just retconned into having power. He's just granted power. The actual character, again, the actual character that we see, that we have seen for decades, very obviously loses to a character like Goku. The power difference between the two is massive. For the actual characters, it's only whenever you try and add in, well, what about this feat from this book and this feat from this book? I know that never came up ever again, and that power level that was shown here is way more powerful than he's ever consistently shown, ever. Like, if he was this powerful all the time, how does he even have any enemies at all? How are people like Mongol or whatever even able to touch him if his power is like multiversal shattering with one punch? We don't think about that if you're a Superman fan. Don't think about any of that. Just power scale and use the high-end feats and ignore the fact that that's not who the character consistently is. And then talking about the specific like advantages they gave, I've talked about this before. Strength, like lifting strength, certainly Superman has the advantage. Speed, they actually had them tie in speed, but I think travel speed, Superman certainly has the advantage. Combat speed, Goku certainly has the advantage. Skill, obviously they were correct there. Goku has the skill advantage. And they talk about experience, and they say Superman has more experience, and they specifically say because like he went and fought in Asgard for 1,000 years, he went and fought over there, and it's like, how does that equate to him having more experience? He has spent more time fighting, sure, but is that the same as experience necessarily? Like, I could spend all day like playing Street Fighter and never get good at it and still be in bronze tier, but I've played like 8 hours a day every day, versus some guy who barely plays the game but he's diamond tier. It's like, should I say that I'm more experienced than that person if we admit that the other person has more skill? Because again, they say Goku has more skill, so how can we say that Superman is more experienced? And if we just want to say time spent existing, sure, Superman has existed longer, but why does that matter if we're admitting that he's lower skill? I don't get that. I don't get how the experience thing plays in. But yeah, so Superman, the experience thing is weird. I don't even know if, like, I get the category. Superman is definitely smarter than Goku. It's like taking a test. Superman is definitely more intelligent. I don't know if he has better combat intelligence or not, but he's certainly more intelligent. If that's what they wanted to say, they should have just said that. And then when they talk about power output, again, I don't know how you just hand Superman power output. They kind of quoted that World Forger feat, which I think is obviously should be thrown out because that wasn't Superman. That was a super amped Superman. That is not his consistent power level. And they both have like these quote unquote like multiverse shattering feats, whatever. But again, you go back to the actual character, issue to issue, the regular character outside of huge events where everything is scaled up and really Superman's just there to serve the plot. Issue to issue character. Obviously, Goku is way more powerful as far as destructive capability. Again, the ability to, say, blow up a planet. Which, back before even Super Saiyan 1, we had planetary destructive abilities. Where Superman, again, consistently, the character, sure, he can destroy a planet, but he's not shown on that level outside of maybe very specific boss fights throughout his arcs, and then these big events where he just suddenly shoots up in power, and now he can do anything, and he's a six-dimensional being, and da 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 da. Now he's all, you know, this powerful. It's like I don't buy that for the character Superman. It's like there's two distinctions of the character. It is really split in two when you talk about him. It is the character and then the powers. And whenever you're doing a versus battle, everybody talks about Superman the powers and not Superman the character. And again, if you want to say that Superman the powers wins, it's like, sure, maybe. Why not? I don't know. I don't care. Maybe Superman the powers does win, but you can just get any power set from any character and match them up, and that's pretty boring. The character versus character, I think, is what's actually exciting. And I think, again, obviously, character versus character, Goku wins. And to quickly lay that out again, because I don't know if I said it explicitly in this video, the power output of Goku is enormous. His skill level is enormous. His combat speed is enormous. Superman, when it comes to an actual fight, has pretty much zero combat experience compared to somebody like Goku, who's an extremely skilled martial artist. He does have way more strength, but I don't know if that matters because, again, when we talk about strength with Superman, I think we're trying to equate that to power level or power output. And his power output, I don't think, is near the Goku level. Maybe if he flies like a million light years and does a big punch, maybe. But that's, again, not how Superman normally behaves. When Superman's in a fight, he throws big, heavy punches, and he gets hit by big, heavy punches. It's not like he's not going to go fly to a blue star and get more powers and then come back. It's like, that's not how the character fights. When we see how he actually fights versus how Goku actually fights, and again, the power that Goku has and the skill that he has and the speed that he has, it's like there's no doubt. Obviously, he wins. And I think that this was just, I don't know, I don't blame them for coming to this conclusion because I think that they are thinking of it as like power set versus power set. So, of course, this is the conclusion they'd come to. But in order to get here, you really have to stretch the imagination, right? And you have to throw a lot of the core character, if you're Superman, out the window entirely. And just rely on like a handful of these high-end feats pulled from specific events where Superman is there to serve the plot. Hey, but if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Obviously, it's incorrect. But hey, believe whatever you want. I don't really care. But let me know what you guys think. If you watched the video, let me know what you think. Let me know who you think would win, if you agree. If you thought it was a more fair analysis than before, because I think it probably was. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video.